this topic is quite unique. It's unique because, and I must start with a disclosure, this is something I've never done in the past. So the topic we're talking about is a future topic. It's a visionary. It's something that I believe, based on my understanding, my knowledge, and mainly based on dozens or even hundreds of discussions I had with some thought leaders in the testing market around what's the future of testing, and where does the testing field is going to. And like all the major changes that have been made in the testing field in the past, also this is based on a global trend of artificial intelligence. So just to give you an introduction, I'll start with a joke that I recently heard. The joke says that in 20 years from now, any business you'll go to, you will find two things. You'll find a human and you'll find a dog. So you might be asking yourself, why do you need a human? The answer is quite easy. Someone needs to feed the dog. So why do you need a dog? Well, someone needs to keep the human away from the machines. And I think it's quite imaginary and visionary to have that. But definitely AI is here, artificial intelligence. I'll describe in a moment what exactly does it mean, but I think it will penetrate almost every aspect of our society and organizations, and I think testing is part of that. So I've created a term called TestBot, same as, I don't know if any of you heard about chatbot or any other robot. A TestBot is a robot that replaces us testers. Don't get panicked. You'll still have enough job, and we'll speak about it later. So what is AI? There are different definitions of AI. The one I like the most is the simplest one. And well, we are all testers. We like simple things. AI is machine replacing humans in making decisions. Machine replacing humans, meaning some of the job that is currently being done by humans, such as, let me give you an example that is not related to testing, at least not directly, driving cars. So I recently read that the most popular job in this planet at the moment is drivers. And obviously there was a huge progress made in the last few years when it comes to self-driving cars. And many people and analysts predict that in 10 or 20 years from now, we will have self-driving cars. Some of them even say it's even much shorter than that, and that will get introduced in the next 3 to 5 years. So if we have a robot that can drive our car instead of us, there probably should be some testing job that can be replaced by robots. Actually, there are robots that already replaced humans. If you go to factories, you'll find a lot of robots, a lot of things, but currently the main use of those robots is about replacing physical work rather than making those decisions. So just an example of what does it mean. I read that about almost a year ago, McDonald's opened their first branch in Phoenix that is entirely operated by robots. So you have a full branch of McDonald's that has no human in it and is fully operated by robots. So the whole AI is part of the fourth generation, or Industry 4.0, which is starting to become a common term. Industry 4.0 actually take many of the recent technologies and progress made in different articles, in different aspects, And there are four main aspects, two related to artificial intelligence, data. So there's now much more data out there, and the amount of data is growing exponentially, with many more, not only amount of data being created, but also the ability, and that is the second topic, which is the analytics, our ability to evaluate the data, to assess the data, and mainly for computers to be able to get wisdom out of that data. The third one is around new technologies that are out there, mainly around human-machine interactions. So in the last, I would say, 40 years, the main interaction between human and a machine was using a mouse and a keyboard. And now there are new ways of interactions, such as bots, such as augmented reality systems, and that will make the whole interaction between humans and machines much better. And there's also the machinery, the ability of machines to be more based on digital and also 3D printing and some other advanced robotics. So all those four items combine of the industry 4.0 revolution. So if we look at the impact of Industry 4.0, so it first accelerates advanced technology, cognitive analytics, cloud computing, Internet of Things, deep learning, machine learning, neural networks, big data, and all kind of different buzzwords. All of that, each one is being handled separately, but if you combine all of that into one thing, you see that there are two main changes or transformations that will affect our industry. The first one, which we kind of covered, is the whole automation. So we said machines replacing humans. That means that a lot of things that are currently being done manually, such as driving a car, will be done automatically. So this is one, the most obvious one. But the second one, which I believe is not less important or doesn't have less effect than automation, would be the personalization. So everyone's talking about the fourth revolution. The second revolution is about mass production. That was the started mid-80s. And now there are a lot of items that are being produced massively, such as cars, such as almost every consumer product that we consume. And there will be a lot of changes in the way using those 3D printing, for example. So I'll give you just one example, not related to testing, from the pharmaceutical industry. Currently, medicines are being produced in a mass production way. Meaning if I have a certain disease and Joel has the same disease, we'll probably get the same medicine. Although it's not currently, with using all the technologies we have, including all the genome and the DNA that is currently being obtained for all of us, in 10 or 20 years from now, each person will have personalized medicine that is based on his medical condition, DNA analytics, and some other wisdom that will allow the pharmaceutical company to produce more personalized product. And this is only one example. Obviously, I can give you example from almost any industry out there. So before we step into the testing, McKinsey about a year ago, almost a year ago, released a survey or a report saying that 60% of all occupation could see 30% or more of their constituent activities automated. So if you sum that up, 18%, at least 18% of what humans are currently doing can be replaced by machines that can do the same level of job or better. And that applies also to testing. And let's see how does that all relate to testing. So obviously, if we were in the science fiction, I would come and tell you, listen, in 20 years from now, we are all going to lose our jobs and be replaced by robots. But let's be realistic, this is not going to happen. There are certain activities related to testing that cannot be replaced by robots. Nowadays, when you speak about automation, I think the test automation, the first thing that comes to your mind is automating the test execution phase. So if you look at the Wikipedia term, test automation is all about execution of tests and comparison of actual outcomes with predicted outcomes. So we're talking about not automating our entire testing, but only automating one phase, one part of testing, which is the test execution. So instead of manually execute our test, we create scripts that run those tests automatically. Not anymore. There will be other parts of testing that will be automated using AI and using advanced technologies. And in order to analyze that, let's try to analyze the job of a tester. So the model I created separate the job of a tester into 6 different, you can say phases, but those are also activities that each tester is, almost each tester is doing. So the first one is learning. We need to learn, understand the requirement, the system under test, and so on. Then we plan the test. We plan which test cases are we going to execute, which not. If we look at the recent transformation to Agile and mainly DevOps, then this requires a lot of planning, much more than what we had to do in the past. Third one is selecting. So we need to select which test case are we going to execute in each iteration. Then comes the execution, and then analyze. We need to analyze the results and see whether they make sense, whether they passed or failed. And if they failed, then we start the whole process of bug chasing, reporting the bug, chasing it, run regression test, and more. So as indicated before, the execution phase is already automated. If not entirely, I think nowadays almost every organization you go to, you find some degree of test execution being automated. I believe the next thing, the next step for automating is the process of selecting which test cases are we going to execute. And if you're looking at DevOps, I've seen several DevOps teams that release products on a daily, sometimes even on an hourly basis. Then the whole selection process is quite important because you don't have much time to execute all your tests. And the way you select which test to execute is extremely important. I believe the next step, I don't think it's feasible at the moment, but in 5 to 10 years from now, we will be able to also automate and having the TestBot automating both the analyze. So every test that will fail, instead of manually rerun it and make sure that it's a real bug and report it, and then do all the bug chasing, those 2 tasks can be replaced by the TestBot, or will be able to be replaced by the TestBot. So test selection. Well, there are a lot of, if you go to some certifications and common practice in the testing field, you'll find that test planning is well-structured approach. There are a lot of techniques for test planning, and same goes for test execution. Same goes almost for every phase of testing, but test selection. So risk-based testing is obviously a term that is a common practice, but at least for my personal experience, I've noticed that many organizations don't have structured, documented, risk-based testing approach. And more than that, in many organizations, the responsibility for the test selection, the responsibility to select which tests are to be executed is not with product managers, it's not with test or QA managers, it's not even with team leaders. In many, many organizations, the responsibility lies with the tester. Sometimes, and I've seen that a lot, many companies are letting junior testers or testers with not much experience. They don't trust them in planning the test because each test case has to be reviewed. But when it comes to test selection, the process is unstructured and undocumented. So if we analyze the latest technology in the testing field, there are several tools, and none of them is actually new. All of them exist for many years in the market. But I think the combination of those tools and those technologies all together can help us in building the TestBot. So the TestBot, at least in my vision, is not a new product, it's not a new technology. It's just a combination of existing technologies and the ability to take the knowledge and the data from different kinds of tools and combine them into one tool or one process that is the TestBot. So first one is GitHub. GitHub allows us, among other functionality, obviously, to analyze source code changes. So that means that every change that is being made in the product, we know exactly what lines of code have changed from one version to the other. Second one is a combination of test execution tools. Well, I've given Selenium as an example, and a tool that exists for many, many years in the market, or a type of tool that is called code coverage tools. Those tools exist for many years, but they are not being used too often. And the reason behind that, at least in my perception, is that those code coverage tools produce a lot of reports, hundreds, thousands, sometimes even million lines of code of reports. Those reports are too huge for human beings and for testers to be able to analyze. There's just too much information in it, and if there's too much information, then the efforts required in order to analyze all that information make the whole process not very effective. So yes, if you look at pharmaceutical or, let's say, airborne systems, those are heavily regulated, so they're required to run code coverage, but in other industries, those tools are not very common. So why do I mention them? Because I think those are quite essential for the TestBot. We're now talking about machines, and machines don't have the limitations that we humans have. Machines can analyze unlimited, not really unlimited, but huge volumes of data. And if we put a code coverage tool in place and connect it with a test execution tool, then we can analyze for each time we run a test or we execute a test, exactly which lines of code have been executed. Okay, so we won't need we will maintain a database that has in one hand list of all the automated test cases that we have, and on the other end, for each test case, we will maintain a list of all codes, line of codes that are being executed by executing that test. The next technology or tool that we're going to use is actually a combination of three, Jira or any defect management tool. So when you come and select a test, I think that analyzing the patterns of previously reported defects and exactly which test cases were executed to find those defects. And on top of that, putting some support ticket systems in place and analyze the patterns of which bugs, which defects were found by the real users, and putting some analytical tool, and I took IBM Watson as an example, but obviously Google has it and almost every big company is currently investing a lot in that. We can analyze the patterns for both the defect and support ticket, and we can use those patterns to better select which test cases have the highest probability to fail, and to focus on first execute the test that has the highest probability to fail. You put that all in a BI system, so this is quite important. We're talking about a lot of data, a lot of knowledge, and it all has to be stored in one shared business intelligence or even a shared database tool. And if we take the CI, the continuous integration revolution, then you can see that CI tools such as Jenkins can support us in ensuring which code has changed and select and execute those test cases that will cover all code changes. And at the end of the day, we will have one test automation tool, or what I call a TestBot, that will be able to ensure that any change of code is being tested, and we get full coverage of all the changes that have been made. So looking at TestBot, what TestBot will do, it will run tests and analyze code coverage. It will analyze patterns in support tickets and bugs. It will select which tests have the highest probability to fail. Obviously, I forgot to mention, it will also have, each test case will have a priority, because obviously we need to make sure that those sanity tests are being executed properly. And the TestBot will also execute the test and provide coverage report. So this is TestBot. I know I described it as a future thing, but I think the technology is here. I haven't seen it working, but I know I've seen some academical and research organizations already starting to invest in creating TestBot and putting AI, artificial intelligence, into testing. But this is based on technology that currently exists in the market. and there's no reason why not to implement it tomorrow morning. So I'll finish with exactly where I started. What about us? What about human testers? Are we going to lose our jobs? Do we need to start training ourselves and find different thing to do? The answer is no. First of all, the TestBot will not replace test planning. And we will be heavily focused on planning many more tests, much more than what we have at the moment. Because currently we have certain limitation. The more tests we plan, the more time we need to select, and the more complexity it introduces to the whole execution process. And once the TestBot will be introduced, then that part of our job will be eliminated, and we will have as many tests as we want, and all of us, the human testers, will continue to plan many more tests than compared to what we've done in the past. We will analyze coverage reports. So at the end of the day, the TestBot will create a coverage report indicating exactly which tests were executed, which failed, which passed, and more importantly, which lines of code were not executed or were not tested. And that will force us to plan more tests to make sure there's no unexercised code in the system under test. And at least in the near future, analyze failures is still a human job. It's still a manual job. And to be honest, I don't see a machine replacing us in analyzing why these tests fail, whether it's a problem with the test case, whether it's a problem with the system. As I said, in 10, 20 years from now, that also may be eligible for automation, but definitely not in the near future. So I know part of what I described is visionary. Some would even say imaginary, but I think this is the future. This is where we're going, and we will see robots taking more and more manual job and the ability to run those processes in a better way, analyze huge set of data, and get better response. And I think we as the testing community will need to adapt and will need to also follow the trend and put those test bots in place in our organizations. That's it. I suggest we move to the question. Joel?
Hi, Al. Yes, I want to thank you first of all for the presentation. I did want to ask a question, and I was trying to look into the concept here, and I was trying to think. Okay, first of all, do you have any idea of when would? I mean, as you said, all the different parts are there. What is missing is the glue. What it helped them to connect together. Do you have any even guesstimate when will we start seeing something closer to this than just theoretical aspect that you were mentioning? And another question, not necessarily related, or maybe a little bit related. Do you think that there are organizations where technology like this will fit better and those where it will fit less than in other organizations? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think the answer for both questions is quite the same. I think the main enabler for TestBot will come from DevOps. So DevOps is a huge thing. I don't want to get too much into it, but DevOps is also a lot about automation. And DevOps is the trigger, the enabler of a lot of automated processes, not related to testing, but also related to testing. And to answer the second part of your question, I think those organizations and companies that will adopt DevOps sooner will be more eligible and relevant to implement that technology.
Okay. There is another question here actually on the Slack channel. And this person is asking, what are some of the practical steps that I can take now to position myself and to position my company in order to leverage AI for testing in a cost-effective way? Meaning, what should I start doing now if I want to be in a place where it will be easier for me to do it?
That's a very good question. I think analytics of starting with defects. So not just the old tab of patterns of defects and maturity of defects, but real analytics of defects that will aim to predict where the next defect will occur. And same goes for support tickets. So analyze those support tickets and trying to predict, even manually, even not get the wisdom or the outcome of those analytics, but only use that manually to better select the testing. I think this can be the first step in integrating AI into our testing.
What do you think about machine learning fitting into the whole analysis of bug analysis and into the whole analysis of what you were mentioning before? Do you actually see that taking a big part of the concept that you're talking about?
Yes, I think that machine learning and deep learning is a huge part of that. And I think if you look at how we test at the moment manually, you'll see that every action we do has some impact on the next activity. So if we run a test and it fails, we know exactly which test to focus on, and we know exactly which test not to focus on. Also, there's a thing about hinge or about gut feeling that we use a lot in testing, mainly in the test selection, as I mentioned before. So we're doing a lot of, when we come to select which test to focus on, even if it's unstructured process, still we're using a lot of gut feeling when doing that decision. Now, gut feeling is a very structured approach that is going on in our brain and can be replaced by machine learning. So gut feeling is all about analyzing patterns when we based on previous experience. And I think machine learning can do that much more accurately than we humans can. Same as, I don't know if any of you are using Waze, the navigation system. Probably Waze can give you the shortest way to get from one point to the other. Now, Waze is based on a lot of information, a lot of data that is being analyzed in order to give you a prediction of what's the shortest route. It doesn't mean it has 100% accuracy. Sometimes it's wrong, but it has very high accuracy. And I think the same goes for TestBots and machine learning. If you put machine learning into testing, you will be able to make much better and smarter decisions.
Let me take you over to an interesting path that you just took, and you mentioned Waze. And for those of you who don't know, Waze is the navigation system. One of the things that they do quite well is to use the data from a lot of people, meaning it's not only my data, in order to help me navigate. Okay, so Waze is using the information from all the community. How do you see the testing community, or even the problems within the testing community, affecting the fact that, again, the model that you're using, if we were to have information from other organizations, it would help my system be better. It will help it learn. How do you actually see that fitting into your model? Do you see that it would be feasible, given the fact that, again, people are competing to one another and the information from the companies is not something they might be so willing to share? What do you think about that point?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. I haven't thought about it, but it's something that I will definitely take away. Um, if we put all the security and all the confidentiality aside, I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other. And if we take this session or this all online conference, I think it's all about learning from each other. And if we as humans can learn from each other, there's no reason why machines cannot learn from each other. So yes, there is an option of having one cloud-based location where we put the wisdom and the output of our testing for others to share, and that information can be used in order to make better decisions. But honestly, I don't see that happening in the near future. I think we said that we'll ignore all the security issues, but those cannot be ignored. And that requires very high level of analytics. And I think that the immediate result or the immediate impact will be in the lower hanging fruit, which, as I mentioned before, is the test selection and the test analytics.
Okay, excellent. So I see that again, most of the questions that people had, we already addressed it a couple of times and even a couple of times over. So Ayal, I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time and for participating and for bringing this actually very interesting concept of not only where testing is today, but also where it might be 5 years, 10 years, who cares, 15 years from now or earlier than that. So thanks a lot for that.